Assalamu alaikum and welcome to today's Sufi teachings. This Sufi teaching series we call Community Connection occurs on the first Sunday of every month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. It is organized and underwritten by Sufi Center Minnesota with the intention of making the Sufi teachings of peace, love, mercy, justice, freedom, and beauty available to people everywhere. We acknowledge that the land Sufi Center is located on is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Dakota and Mdewakanton tribes. Sufi Center Minnesota recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We're excited and grateful to have Dr. Rabia Sa'bura Goodban with us today. Rabia is a Chinese medicine doctor who specializes in environmental medicine, similar to functional medicine, counseling, and Sufi spiritual healing. She is a certified master healer. She has taught and supervised Zen, shiatsu, massage, and Chinese medicine. Rabia's Master of Divinity is in Sufi spiritual guidance and education. She hosts zawiya, or retreat, at her private practice in Colorado. Her deep interest in metaphysics, and healing has led her to study many topics informally, including various styles of astrology. Her love of plants and flowers inspired her to cultivate a flower essence line, Sublime Flower Essences, available to purchase on her website, which you will find in the show notes below. Her teaching today is Mystical Astrology, an introduction to Ibn Arabi's 28 Mansions of the Moon. Rabia, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you, all of you who have joined today and who are enjoying the recording, inshallah. It's an honor to be with you. I am going to give you an introduction to a lot of different facets of Ibn Arabi's mystical astrology system. And before we begin, let's say the Fatiha together, inshallah. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim. Okay. So I just want to start by saying this topic is very vast, and there will be potentially an opportunity to explore this in future classes if there's interest. And I will also give you the resources to explore it on your own. Mr. Grognard, I'd like to give a tip of the kufi or hat to her for presenting this text in one of her classes. This really gave permission to explore astrology from the Sufi perspective. I know we know a bit about Ibn Arabi, some of us much more than others, and I won't delve too deeply into a biography about him, but I would like to just share a little. We know he's considered the Sheikh Al-Akbar, Dr. Maximus, or the greatest Sheikh, and he's also referred to as Muhyi al-Din, the reviver of religion. According to this book, which is a resource on the divine names, not so much on the astrology system, but it has a very nice biography. Unveiling the Secret of the Most Beautiful Names is the title. Ibn Arabi's main contribution to Sufism is in his making the teachings clear and defined. And he has influenced many who followed, including Rumi, whose poetry, many of us, attracted us to the Sufi path. And our beloved guide Sidi, may Allah sanctify his secret, and many other mystics of the Sufi path. We owe a very deep debt of gratitude, and to the fact that Allah brought planet at the exact time execution that he did. And I just thought this was so beautiful. I wanted to share. It's one of the translations of a kind of famous quote from Ibn Arabi in his called A Collection of Mystical Odes. My heart has become capable of every form. It is a pasture for gazelles and a convent for Christian monks and a temple for idols and the pilgrim's Kaaba and the tables of the Torah and the book of the Quran. I follow the religion of love. Whatever way love's camels take, that is my religion and my faith. The books, textbook that Ibn Arabi wrote is called the Meccan Revelations. And he uses a lot of symbolism, and he invented a language of his own, different codes to make the secrets that he was sharing not accessible for the looked within. On the mansions, and the Arabic word for the mansions is manazil for the plural and manzil for the singular. So this book, this is from chapter 198 of the 4-volume Futuhat. And then the deeper understandings of some of the corresponding cosmic domains, the houses, or the manazil, the manzil, is from chapter 167, and that's from this other book. This is by Hertenstein, and it's called The Alchemy of Human Happiness. So astrology, just to kind of dive in here, astrology was once a united system with astronomy, and is defined in the beginning of Burckhardt's book, in the foreword by Critchlow, as the practical application of astronomy to human use. So I want to keep returning to this definition, that it's the practical application of astronomy to human use, so that we're allowing ourselves to be open, and Arabi book on alchemy and happiness, that alchemy and medicine were also once united, which I find so beautiful. And there's a quote, another quote from the poet and a Sufi mystic Attar, and this is also from that. Turn your body into a heart and turn your heart towards pain. This is the way that true humans practice alchemy. Kind of a strong statement, but I feel like this is the medicine. This is what we search for on the Sufi path, to know ourselves, to know our Lord. So, astrology, the system of keeping track of the seasons. It goes back to antiquity. Are you the only beloved? Is anyone else having trouble?
Your bandwidth is a little bit low, Rabia, so I'm going to ask everyone to turn their cameras off. Let's see if that helps a little bit, and we'll do the best we can.
Okay, I'm so sorry.
Nope, that's okay.
Okay, so please, if it happens, let me know and I'll adjust. So keeping track of the seasons and of time goes back to antiquity and has been adopted by many throughout the world. We have examples like Newgrange in Ireland or Stonehenge in England, multiple others that use this idea of a circle as a way of tracking the time. So with this system of 28 dimensions, it has largely been forgotten in terms of the implementation and also the benefit. So I'd like to talk about the moon for just a moment before resuming some of the sharing about the mansions. So another source of information is from Partridge's The Celestial Polished Mirror. And this is another Ibn Arabi that's been related. And on the moon, no pun intended, the moon is a metaphor of the reflection of the divine light and the analogy to our own hearts as the mirror, also reflecting that divine light. And that the moon, just like the human being, is made of and in terms of how much can be reflected back. We emulate the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, who was said to have had a face that shined like the full moon, so full of divine light. And the moon governs the imaginal realm, and the Arabic for this is called musawira. We've got the quality. Oh, okay. Are you hearing me okay, Abdullah, or
we're probably getting about 70%, something like that. The connection is not as stable as we would like, but we're here. So let's just, there's nothing we can do other than what we've already done. Let's just keep going.
Okay.
Inshallah.
Okay. So the moon governs the imaginal realm, which is the imaginal realm allows us to connect to what we cannot see. And so the idea is that the moon allows us to access other realms through the power of imagination, and that actually opens to about the way we've used our imagination to connect to the constellations and the zodiac signs through myth and story. And what was how the power of the planet affecting the tides, but also stabilizing the climate, and that it also pulls on our water, on our blood. And water, we know from research, is credited with having memory, and that there's emotion that's stored in the blood, and the way that the moon impacts it. I could do that.
Yeah, let's try it and see if it works.
Okay.
If it makes it better.
Okay, astaghfirullah.
Okay.
Okay. So sorry that this is not as easy to hear as I'd hoped. So the idea that the emotions are stored in the water, the memories stored in the water, our emotions, our emotional memories are stored in our water, in our blood, and that in a sense, that the intention with the moon pulling on us is that it's helping to guide us back to our heart, to feel our emotions that maybe we've tried to bury in our own earth. So I don't know is that making a difference at all, Abdullah? So
far, it's better.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so now on the Shadaliya path, we focus on having greater intimacy with the divine source, with Allah, and we also focus a lot on healing places that have been turned away, either because of false beliefs or programming or other things that cause us to turn away. So I will potentially be presenting some information that's not in alignment with some of the astrological programming that we have been exposed to here in the West. And so just asking to please keep open and to be willing to go through a little bit of temporary cognitive dissonance as this information is contemplated. So I do have some visual aids, so I may just turn the camera on just to show you the circle that contains the 28 mansions or manazil. Allows for us to track the phases of the moon, but it also allows us to track the course of the solar year from the spring equinox through to the next. And it also allows us to track the nodes of the moon. The nodes of the moon are known as the lunar orbit. This is a cycle that takes many years, over 18 and a half, to travel through the entire zodiac. And the lunar nodes allow us to know when there's going to be an eclipse. So the north node and the south node is something that is used in certain astrological systems as well. So I'm going to just turn my camera on for a second. Okay. Okay, so this is today's date, and so if you imagine a clock face, in a sense, the hour would be the node, the north node of the moon, because it spends about 1.55 years in each house. The minute hand would be where the sun is, which is in Libra, and then the moon would be, because 28 days is a lunar cycle. The moon is in the 21st house because we're on the 21st day of the lunar month. Cycle, it's spending about 13 days in each house, and 13 times 28 is almost 365, right around there. Okay, so that's one visual. Now I'm going to go off camera again. Okay. Okay. Each mansion or manzil has a corresponding divine name, a sound, and a corresponding cosmic domain, which is likened to a stage in the journey. And the star of a corresponding zodiac will also correlate or correspond with each house, which is whatever, wherever we are, where the spring equinox starts. And each zodiac also has a corresponding angel of influence, which I won't necessarily go into today, but it's a very beautiful concept worth further exploration. And so the use of the 28 mansions is cited in the Quran from Surah Yusuf, Surah 10, Ayat 5. It is He, Allah, who made the sun an illumination and the moon a light, and decreed for it mansions, that you might know the number of years and the reckoning of time. Okay, so I'm going to show you now, just briefly. I don't expect you necessarily to be able to, just to kind of get some of these broad concepts here. So these are the sounds for the 28 houses. And according to Burkhardt, he says it's the sounds that actually creates the houses. Okay. And then these are the divine names that correspond with each of the houses. And I'm going to turn the camera off and I'll come back in a moment. So, and what I think is the divine name of each house helps us to unlock the secrets of the cosmic domain of each house. So in our Shadali Sufi path, Sidi, who was definitely impressed by Ibn Arabi's teachings, he gives us these 28 stations to really help us to walk so that we can return to be in the unity, and inshallah to do the return back in the Baka. Ibn Arabi is also suggests and says that these 28 houses, these mansions, are that same journey, and that when you complete all 28 of these, then you become an insan al-kamal. This next piece is a little bit interesting, to say the least. Okay, and I think okay. All right, I'm sorry I put up the wrong one before. Okay, so these are the divine that go with the 28 houses. And these are the domains of those 28 houses. And it just was not possible to fit everything on one. And these are the fixed stars associated with each house in our current time. Okay, so should I take a break so that everyone can integrate a little? Is this making sense so far? I don't want to have it be too much, but I also want to make sure that as much as possible we go through the introduction. So maybe I'll just share a little bit more, and then we'll have time for questions, inshallah. So I guess I'd like to give an example of how the divine name helps us with understanding the cosmic domain of a house. So the seventh house is known as the divine throne. And the name that goes with that is Al-Muhit. Al-Muhit is not a quality that's in Fazia's book, nor is it in Ibn Arabi's, but it is in Sidi's name's book. And it is also used in the Quran, Surah Anfal 8:47. The idea that Allah al-Muhit is the all-encompassing. He encircles and comprehends all. And the idea with the divine throne, that it's in the center. It's like the ketub, the center point, and yet it's also everything that goes around the center. So I like that one. Another one is the one that is after. This is the 8th mansion, which is the footstool or the divine pedestal, al-Kursi. And the quality is ashakur. And the idea that when we allow ourselves to be in gratitude, because each foot, I believe, is Jamal, the beauty, everything we're so wanting and hoping for, and the Jalal, what we try to push away, that we wish we didn't have to deal with. But each foot is, it represents one of those, and that the shakur is the quality that allows us to be at Allah's feet, to really be in gratitude for whatever he brings. So I'm not going to go so much into the sounds today, but I would like to talk about the astrology piece. So unless there are any questions, I'm happy to pause if anyone has a question about anything I've shared so far.
Should you want to ask? If somebody has questions, please raise your hand. Also, I'll ask Rabia to send me the charts that she's put up so that I can attach them to the recording and you can get good, clean copies of them, inshallah. So anybody that has a question, raise your hand, your metaphorical hand, please. Karam Saeed, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, I'm used to thinking about astrological houses as divided into 12 parts. So I would love to hear more about why the houses in this particular system are divided into more and why that particular number. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate that question. And I appreciate also that it allows me to just go off script. I'm familiar more with the idea of the 12 houses as well, and that each house corresponds to a zodiac sign. But in this system, the 28 houses are corresponding to the phases of the moon cycle, which makes each zodiac sign, if you take each house of the 28, you would divide each house into thirds, and then each zodiac really gets 7 thirds, because it will either be in 2 full houses and the third of a house, or it'll be in 1 house and 2/3 of the house before and after, depending on when the actual spring equinox is, because that's going to adjust, because this system also is very acknowledging of the fixed stars, not just the zodiac, but the antique way of doing astrology was more focusing on the fixed stars, even though they did recognize zodiac and constellations. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so unless there are any other questions, I was going to just dive in a little bit with the astrology and just a little bit more in terms of this adjustment of what we think of. Okay, so astaghfirullah. So, okay. Western sidereal astrology, sidereal means the stars. This is a system of astrology that is congruent with astronomers. So going back to that definition of astrology as the benefit of taking the actual astronomy and applying it to our understanding of who we are, what's going on in the world. And there's I can't remember if this is a hadith, but there's this notion of us reading the 3 books. And the 3 books are the book of ourself, the book of God, and the book of the cosmos. Cosmos being a word that derives from the Greek word for order. So I feel like there's a way we can reincorporate astrology that makes it whole again. And in doing some of the research, there's a lot of stuff out there that I don't think is actually in the alignment that we hold on this path in terms of I won't even go into it. I'll just I'm just alluding to it. So Okay, so one of the facets of astronomy is the idea of precession. Precession is the way that the Earth wobbles just a little bit on its axis. It moves so slowly that it takes 70 years for it to move 1 degree. And so, you know, in a typical lifetime, we might not really even notice. But if you have a system of tracking it, then you can observe it, because it's being tracked through generations in a culture. So, like many of you, if you are those who've studied astrology, you have learned that Aries marks the beginning of spring, period, end of story, no discussion. And I understand I was one of those people for 20 years. So, but because of precession, what's actually been happening is that we've been drifting back through Pisces. And so each age takes about 2,100 years to traverse. So it's 30, think about 30 degrees for each sign times 70. That's how you get the 2,100. So the one of my favorite songs about the dawning of the age of Aquarius, we're still about another 250 years. We're maybe at the dawning, but we are still on the snooze button. So right now, spring starts at about 4 degrees Pisces. So when I did this calculation of the fixed stars for each constellation, I adjusted it to that. And interestingly, Ibn Arabi knew that the fixed stars weren't fixed. He knew that the sun was at the center and that we moved around it, even though his contemporaries in that time weren't aware. But because of his deep level of gnosis, he was able to access that information. Okay. So let's see. Have I shown you? I think the last visual was to show you the cosmic domains, unless I already showed you that. So these would be the 28 stations of Ibn Arabi. So just like an astrology chart that starts with 12 houses, you always have spring here at the dawn time. And then this is also, this chart is also the way that the moon goes from new to full. So it's, and there's a lot of meaning. One of them is the full moon would be, and I'll turn the camera off again. The full moon would be at day 14, roughly, right? Is it takes a new moon is at day 0 or 1. At 7 days, we're at first quarter. At 2 weeks, 14 days, we're at full moon. At 3 weeks, 21 days, we're at the last quarter moon, and then at the 28, we're back at the new moon. So the 14-day, that 14th house is considered the 4th heaven, which is the sphere of the sun and the abode of Idris or Enoch, peace and blessings be upon him. And the quality for that house is Anur, the light. So there's more to it than I feel I can delve into in an introduction. But I just wanted to bring it to our community because I think it holds a lot of value, and potentially we could really benefit from understanding what's happening. I think my experience with the sidereal astrology has been that because it is more reflective of what's actually in the sky, it gives us maybe a greater understanding of who we are and our gifts, our abilities, what we can focus on. I don't know what else to share, but I welcome questions, comments.
Okay, anybody has any questions, comments, or reflections, just raise your hand, please. Wadud, please unmute yourself and ask your question or make your comment.
Assalamu alaikum, beloved. What are your ideas on how we could use the system and integrate it into our learning and our teachings and understandings of Sufism at large? Thank you.
Wow. Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for your question. I mean, we could use it as an opportunity to reflect on the divine names. You know, one of the things that had occurred to me was for us to spend time with each of the divine names for each of the houses, and maybe it would be helpful for me to read these beautiful qualities. I feel like part of it is also to allow us to have access to something that feels like in some ways it's become contaminated. And I don't mean that to be a put down, even though I know it sounds judgmental, but it just seems like astrology has kind of merged with other facets that don't necessarily put a law first. That's, I guess, more of the discernment of what that looks like to me. So allowing ourselves to reclaim our ability to see Allah in all things, to you know, Ibrahim will teach about how, you know, everywhere all the time Allah is sending us signs, and we look for a lot of signs in nature, but we aren't necessarily always looking to the signs that the stars are bringing to us. To you know, another way is even just looking that this is okay. Today the moon is in Cancer. It's in the 21st mansion, so potentially that means, you know, we may be feeling particularly sensitive today, just because Cancer is such a sensitive sign, and because the 21st house has to do with earth, and it has to do with the quality of Mumit, the slayer, or the bringer of death. So there's a way that, you know, maybe on some subconscious level, that as a collective, we're tuning in on some level to this, and I guess I feel like it's a way of helping us reclaim this wisdom that is just is meant to be for us to use, you know. And one of the reasons I shared that quote from the Quran, or the translation from the Quran, was that it, you know, we take the Quran as this is Allah is speaking, that this is what Allah says, and that He wants us to be able to use this and access this. So because this system has largely been forgotten in terms of how it's implemented and used, I feel like I've just been spending a lot of my research time trying to figure out, okay, so what does that mean? Today, the sun is in 17 degrees Libra, according to the sidereal astrology system, the system I was talking about that corresponds to astronomy. And that sun is in the 18th house. So the 18th house is the realm of air, or Hawa is the Arabic, and the quality of that, the divine name is Al-Hay, And so perhaps, you know, there's a way that I think many of us are, you know, when we think about Libra, we think about wanting beauty, wanting justice, wanting fairness, you know, and look at where we are right now as a planet. So it's up. The sun is shining on it. And then the North Node, which we kind of, I'm kind of calling the hour hand, because it spends, you know, where's the moon is spending 1 day in each house. The sun is spending 13 days in each house. The nodes are spending 1.55 years in each house. So in a sense, those are the hours versus the minute in the second hand, if you catch my metaphor. And so that North Node, which is, they call, because of the movement, the undulation of the movement of the moon as it goes above and below the ecliptic, that it kind of undulates like a dragon. So they'll call it like the head and the tail sometimes. So the North Node is like the head. And you can think of that as like, this is where we're going. So that North Node in the second house is in 29 degrees of Pisces. So Pisces is such a beautiful sign, a sensitive, artistic, dreamy, you know, the veils kind of softening, and 29 degrees is a pivotal placement, although technically with the nodes it's moving down the line instead of up the line, but it's right there on the cusp of Aries. So we can't discount the impact of Aries kind of warrior energy drifting in and affecting that Piscean watercolor. But so as a collective, even stronger or equally strong perhaps to the placement of the sun is that we're going through, you know, from the lunar perspective, this deep emotional dive into, you know, to me, this is my interpretation, into collective trauma that's up for healing. And it's in the second house, which governs the cosmic domain of the second house, is the universal soul, the preserved tablet. Preserved in the sense that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala writes on there, it cannot be touched, it cannot be changed. It, you know, it, and the quality that it helps us to go deeper into that cosmic domain is Al-Ba'ith, the resurrector, the one who invokes and calls forth. So in a sense, you could say, and this is obviously my interpretation, is that Allah is invoking and calling forth so much deep healing of the collective in terms of things that are stored, because Pisces is, you know, this deep water source of memory, emotional memory. I hope that answered your question. Thank you.
Wadud actually had a second part to his question, Rabia. He asks, how did beloved Ibn Arabi use this system? Given your experiences with the tropical and sidereal systems, what surprised you in your research?
Okay, Alhamdulillah. I'm not fully sure on exactly how he used these, other than he states very clearly that they are the universal journey for the seeker. And so in that sense, I think they can be used just like the 28 stations that we have from CD. And then that was a complex question about the astrology system. I don't know if I have an answer to that part.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Wadud, for your questions.
Yeah, thank you. Alhamdulillah.
Master, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please.
Assalamu alaikum, beloved.
Walaikum
Thank
salam,
you.
beloved. Thank you.
Good to see you. And thank you so much for bringing this to the community. I love the information that you're sharing and the relevance to what our world is moving through right now. And I apologize, I came in a little bit late. Could you share the reference of like where you're learning this information? Because I think we share a passion about this, and I find it really intriguing. And I love diving into the works of Ibn Arabi and in this system, his cosmology system. And I would love to immerse in this a little more. Can you share
Absolutely.
what you're using to learn about this?
Yes, and at the beginning of the class, I did tip of the Kufi to you for sharing the work by Burckhardt, The Mystical Astrology According to Ibn Arabi. And then that book led me to The Alchemy of Human Happiness. So that book is by, yes, that's correct, by Stephen Hertenstein. And that book actually gives you the names, because most of the translations that I found for the names of the mansions in terms of the divine names were in English. So being yeah, so making sure I was using the correct divine names that Ibn Arabi had shared.
Okay.
And then
I have a reference to the Ibn Arabi's Arabic names if you're interested. So
yeah, and that's in that Alchemy of Human Happiness.
Okay.
And so I was showing that as a chart, and which I'm going to send.
Yeah, it's coming through blurry.
Share with you. I'm sorry.
But
okay.
Yeah.
And then there was also a little bit of information gleaned just from the Ibn Arabi journal. One of the writers, I think it's a female, her last name is Partridge. It's The Celestial Polished Mirror. And then I had to dive deep into information on the fixed stars to make sure I was understanding the placement for where we are today. Because as I was sharing with all the other beloveds on the call, that we have been taught that Aries is the first sign of spring. But when you look up above at the zodiac, there is no beginning. There is no end. All of the zodiac signs and the constellations up there, like where's the beginning? There was a time when the spring equinox was marked by Taurus. And then there was a time when it was marked by Aries, but we've been in Pisces for 26 degrees already. We're down to 4, and each degree is 70 years. So we still have another 250, 280 before we actually move into the age of Aquarius, which I was sharing that I love that song so much, but there's been a way that each zodiac sign becomes projected onto as being amazing, so good. We love this sign. And then as things happen and as it moves, we can't stand this sign. So like even the word scapegoat is really a way of demonizing the goat, the Capricorn constellation, and making it into like the devil, astaghfirullah. And so each of these zodiac signs goes from being put on a pedestal to being knocked off. So the idea, I think that somehow when we're in the age of Aquarius, I think that age has to come much sooner than that. I think we can be in the age of peace and love right now, regardless of which zodiac sign is above us.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. Thank you. And for the record, I only came in about 10 minutes late.
Oh, okay.
But thank you.
Thank you, beloved.
Thanks, Master. And Robbie, if you want to send me a book list, I will attach that to the show notes so that people have it.
Okay, alhamdulillah, I'll be happy to do that.
Awesome. Anybody else has any other questions, comments, reflections, please raise your hand.
I don't have the raise your hand feature.
Oh, that's okay. We're here. We're here. Walaikum assalam. We're hearing you, so go ahead.
Well, I have two questions. One has to do with, there was a definition that was given earlier about completing certain cycles, and that is what would lead to like becoming insan kamil.
Speak up
That's
just a
one
little
question.
bit, beloved, please.
Oh, there was kind of a definition as to how one might become an insan kamil. It had to do with completing a certain number of the cycles, astrological cycles or astronomical cycles. I didn't quite catch that. But then the other question is, well, you know, for some Muslims or, you know, believers of Islam, there's 99 divine names. For some, there's 100 divine names. And then for others, there's 101 divine names. And I'm wondering the breakdown in connection to 28 houses. I'm doing the math, and I thought I might just as well call and get assistance.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for your questions. I will inshallah hope to give some clarity. So each of the 28 mansions, or manzil or manazil being the plural, each of the mansions is a stage in our journey. And when we complete the 28, just like with CD's 28 stations, when we complete those 28 stations, that is where we ideally arrive. And the 28 divine names, I believe, it seems like the 28 divine names that correspond with each house give us insight into the corresponding cosmic domain. So the first house has to do with the creation, Allah's creation of the first intellect, right? Where Allah says, be Muhammad, and takes the light from his face, right? That first intellect, that's considered the first house, and the quality, the divine name is Al-Badi, the originator. And so I think as we use that divine name, if we were to work with that quality, that perhaps we would get a taste of what does that feel like to have that quality polish in our heart? What does that feel like to have an understanding about Allah as the supreme pen, you know, who is the only creator. So I don't know if that answers your questions. I hope I addressed both of them.
Alhamdulillah. So there's 28 houses, there's 99 or 100 divine names. And so does each house have 3 or 4 divine names, you know, attributed to it?
I think the divine names, it often they'll use 99 because the number 9, you know, when you add 9 and 9, you get 18, which you get 9. Like it has this feeling of never ending, that there's no end. And so those 99 names or 100 names or 101 names are all important, and this list of the 28 is to really give us a sense of the walking through the stations. So say, for example, the quality of Shakur in the 8th house, which deals with the footstool or the pedestal, Al-Kursi, we might also have other qualities that we would use if we were working with Shakur, right? Like we might use Sabur, we might use Alhamdulillah, we might use other 99 names to help us to really get to a place of gratitude as we walk through that station. But I don't have even Arabi. I wish he could let us know how we're supposed to work with these, because I don't have the full tajali to offer at this point.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you so much.
Alhamdulillah, you beloved. Salam alaikum salam.
Thank you, beloved. Wadud has another question. Please unmute yourself, Wadud.
Assalamu alaikum, beloved. I apologize. I had to step away. I'm not sure if you saw my question in the chat. I'm curious about Ibn Arabi and how he used the system, or how he talked about the system, or quote unquote system, this form of astrology. It's really interesting, and I just find it really interesting that this class, and thank you for doing all the research on this class. I have a lot of questions, but we can maybe discuss those at another time. But I'm really interested to know how Ibn Arabi himself, peace and blessings be upon him, talked about the system, used the system. I mean, was it referenced by other prophets or other teachers, other Sufi teachers? I know you did make reference to the CDs potentially honoring of the 28 houses with his 28 stations. And I guess it's just kind of one question just kind of leads into another. So I guess for now, I'll just leave it with the one kind of over generalized question of how did Ibn in these books talk about how to use it, or if it was to be used. I'm not sure. I guess that's my not so clear question.
No, thank you, beloved. Alhamdulillah. And he was born in the mid 1100s in Spain, and then he eventually made his way to Egypt, and then he eventually made his way to Mecca, and he was born at a time when there was a lot of incredible thinking. The suspicion is that he was initiated into the Hermetic tradition, and I think part of what he was trying to offer was inner wisdom, inner knowing on a lot of the systems that were in place. So he ended up writing on alchemy, which was a topic that others were writing upon, but he was offering it more from the inner, what I would call the Sufi perspective of what is Allah really trying to do with the alchemy, right? Because it really isn't about taking a metal and turning it into gold. It's about taking our heart, which is clay and can just be dense and dark, and turning it into gold in the sense that it's luminous and beautiful, and we see the value, right? That quote, that hadith Qudsi, I was a hidden treasure and I longed to be known, so I hid my treasure in the heart of my faithful believer. I don't fully know enough yet to offer an answer, but there is another text that I didn't share that I will pass on. It's a near 500 page book that I'll try to have prepared for next time if I offer further teachings on this, where there is a little bit more explication about how he might have used this. There was just so much to get to in preparation that I just don't have the answer to that yet. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, thank you.
Thank you, Wadud. So we're at time, Rabia. Why don't you turn your camera back on? Are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave us with today?
You know, the thought about Ibn Arabi, what I learned in the research was that we really don't have a lot of the teachings of Sufism without what he offered, what he shared, what he was willing to take time to write. And my hope is that we can clean astrology and return it to the wholeness that it used to have, or that it could have, and to use it like it was intended, which would be to help us to look at the signs that are always being sent, so we can make the most of our time here and help, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you for a wonderful teaching today.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Thank you for having me.